Good evening and welcome to the Sandwich Board of Selectmen January 5th, 2023 meeting. We're going to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to open with our first public comment period. Is there anybody here for public comment? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first 5-minute public comment period, then I'll let you guys speak if that's all right. So I'd like to open it with based on and I know that why some of you are here in regards to the liquor licenses, and I do want to address that in public forum because we're not allowed to comment back on public forum once it starts. So when you speak, we can't return, back to you. So just to give you a brief background of liquor licenses, because I was online reading, and I know that there's a lot of frustration, angst, and some misinformation over to what the process is for liquor licenses in the state of Massachusetts, specifically to Sandwich. Some of this dates back to 1985. About 40 years ago, there was a vote taken in certain towns, actually in all towns throughout the Commonwealth, and towns could vote for a cap on liquor licenses, or they could vote to have an unlimited amount of liquor licenses. In Sandwich, we voted and there's going to be a cap on the liquor licenses. Currently, we have 22 all-alcohol on-premises licenses and 8 annual all-alcohol off-premises retail licenses. All of those licenses have been given out. So that means that license holders actually have these licenses in their possession or are in the process of renewing them, or they've been put on notice for non-usage that they have 6 months to procure. Through town council and through our research with the ABCC, which we've been in contact with, the statute and the generally accepted rule of thumb is 6 months set on precedent, which means that if you do not renew your license and or you renew it a day late, in the case of one of our applicants, it's a new license. If you have taken a full all alcohol license and then not used it from the date that it was issued or not picked it up, which is in the case of our Tapas, that license, both of those have 6 months basically based on precedent to proceed and make sure they have the opportunity to correct whatever issues they have within 6 months. We have officially, as the town, put both of those license holders on notice officially that they have 6 months to cure whatever issues that they have. At the same time, because we've had I would say an increased amount of interest in liquor licenses, what we've done as the town is proactively contacted the ABCC. We've contacted both the state reps Moran's office and Zaros's office. We've actually sent them a letter. There's an opportunity, it's not guaranteed, but there's a process that we can go through to expand the amount of liquor licenses that are in Sandwich. So what we've done is we've crafted a letter, Bud and Heather have crafted a letter that we've sent to both of those offices, which will be forwarded on. We're asking for an additional, I believe it's 10 all alcohol licenses, on-premise licenses, and an additional 5 retail licenses to be issued to the town of Sandwich. Now, what happens when we ask for that is that it actually takes a special act through the state legislature for them to approve that for the town. And then in May, we actually have to go through town meeting and it has to be approved by the voters in town meeting in May. So there's 2 steps on that, and neither of which is a fast moving process. The estimated time for that, if it were to be approved all the way through, it is an administrative vote at the Senate, is still 6 to 9 months. So there's no immediate resolution to liquor licenses. We don't currently have a liquor license to give out. We have an unlimited amount of seasonal licenses to hand out, but we don't have any year-round alcohol licenses that are currently available. They're all spoken for. They're all being held by the licensees. So that's, more or less where we're headed. We've been doing this not for, some of the people that are here this evening to speak, but we've had other businesses and restaurants in town that want to expand their license from a beer and wine to an all alcohol. We've had other restaurants that are waiting to get a license to open. So there is increased need and want for these, and we are trying to address that in the best way that we can. Thank you. So we'll open it up to. You got to take a seat and make sure the green light's on with the microphone. And yeah, we're going to cap these. You have right in the center. It says push, and we're going to leave it at. We're going to give everybody 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer McGee. I represent Carlo Perugia from Carluccio's Restaurant, and I'm presenting a statement on his behalf. Mr. Perugia took a difficult location in a section of town that is largely underserved when it comes to full-service restaurants. It's fair to say that Carluccio's is the only full-service restaurant in Forestdale proper. Before Carlo made any solid plans to open up a restaurant at the subject location, many local residents of Sandwich told him he must be crazy. However, Carlo believed he really could establish an authentic family-style Italian restaurant at this location and plowed ahead. Being the law-abiding, outstanding citizen that Carlo has been for over 20 years here in town, and having sold one of his 2 restaurants he had been operating for a number of years, Carlo set his heart on opening Carluccio's around the corner from his home here in Sandwich. Little did he know how under-transparent and difficult it would be to get straight answers from the town regarding the number of licenses issued, available, and the best way to proceed in order to have a place in line for the annual alcohol liquor license pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, for his fully permitted restaurant. Unfortunately, after Carlo had been told several times that he could not apply for an annual all-alcohol license, information surfaced leading him to believe that someone else's application had been accepted by the town. That made it appear that something is wrong in the town, and more particularly because there appears to be at least 2 licenses in question that should not have been issued under state law and should have been terminated for non-use because of their inability to meet all the precedent conditions necessary before issuance of any liquor license. Section 12 of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, requires that the premises comply in all respects with requirements of the premises before a liquor license is issued, and, quote, no liquor license can be provisionally issued. The town is also able to accept surrender of a license and issue a seasonal license to a facility that will take it at least that long before it will become operational, and that's only if they're very lucky, as I understand, on this set of circumstances. There is specific language contained in Section 12 of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, that says no license shall be subject to any condition requirement varying the occupancy as certified. Further, Section 16A of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, provides that where a different property is to be licensed, a new license application is required, indicating that they must start over again. The law says nothing about holding a place in line for a non-operational license that haven't been properly issued, and there is no clear path that they can be used or otherwise qualified for legal issuance. Section 12 also requires proof of liquor liability insurance before any liquor license can be legally issued. Has everyone that hasn't been using their license fully insured as required? It's also been clear that another establishment was given a 6-month extension on a application that wasn't timely filed. This is an unfair and disparate application of the law because Carluccio's location lost its license after the prior operator passed away, and there was a similarly late application. Finally, Carluccio's deserves its liquor license because it would bring in commercial tax dollars to the town of Sandwich, and it's a family restaurant that would provide a sense of community in the community of Forestdale. Thank you.
Once again, I appreciate your time and efforts, and my level of frustration, I want everybody to know I'm not here to be disruptive or to try to cause any type of problems whatsoever in the town. I do appreciate the laws that are in place, and thank you for that opening. You answered a lot of the questions that I had. I'm happy to hear that you are looking into getting more licenses. If there's, you've already stated that you put both license holders 6 months. I don't know if that could be reversed. Alls I know is that come January 15th, unfortunately, my dinner business, I can expect to lose at least, conservatively speaking, 40 to 50% of my dinner business because, let's face it, when people go out to a restaurant, they want to unwind, relax, have a cocktail, and a few glasses of wine with their meal. If there's any way that, I don't know if it's, somebody had mentioned that another license could be used for a period of time until the season rolls around again for me. I don't know if that's accurate. I'm not a lawyer. But I do appreciate everything that everyone is doing. I have people here that are here for support. We're not here to gang up on the board at all. If there's any way that I could get a partial license or just something to get me through the 3 months that I'm gonna be pretty much out in the cold, I would greatly appreciate any help in that area, although you've made it fairly clear what the position is, and I am happy that you're going in that direction. Still, again, I'm a bit disappointed that the 2 licenses that are in question, they had a full year to get their affairs in order, and the rapid vote, and I know it was because of what was suggested by town council. I understand that. I just hoped that maybe you would have considered my position a little bit longer before the quick vote that happened on that. I don't want to get in any conflict with any other business owner in town. I don't want to claw to try to, okay, you got 2 licenses and grab it. I'm just extremely frustrated that if it was a shorter period of time, I would almost accept it. But they had a full year to get their affairs in order. And another question I have, since the Bobby Burns license was not renewed in time, is he still in possession of that license? Since he did not meet the deadline. It's one of my other questions. Let's see what else. And just to make it clear, people, when I told them that I was going to open up a business in Sandwich, they said, "Are you crazy? Why?" But throughout the whole process of me opening my restaurant, every town official was absolutely accommodating, helpful, and knowledgeable. And I appreciate all their help that they gave me. Once again, I'm hoping that somehow I can get something this way. I can continue to, my business, thank God, is successful at this time. And I have employees. I employ 22 people. I have employees that are dependent on those paychecks. And we're all gonna take a drastic hit. I just ask for the board's help. Whatever can be done. I mean, I have mothers, I have grandfathers or grandmothers, I have fathers working. It's gonna hurt. That's why I'm upset that the extension was given so quickly without actually taking into consideration my position as an operating restaurant. I'm already up and running. The other 2 locations, God knows when they're gonna open, if they're even gonna be able to open. And in the meantime, me, my employees, my family, and my customers are going to be, I don't want to say inconvenienced, but the way I'm doing business right now is going to be compromised in a very negative way. So if there's any way that you can reconsider your vote, I would definitely appreciate it. And I appreciate all of the board's efforts and everything they do to make our town what it is. I love Sandwich. I raised my children in Sandwich. They're going to be graduating from Sandwich High. I don't want to be anywhere else. But financially, depending on how it goes, hopefully some of my customers will still come in. And by the way, anybody that comes in after the licenses are gone, all the drinks are on me. Soda, water, iced tea. And once again, I appreciate your time and any efforts on my behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, folks, we're gonna keep the decorum in the room, please. Next. And just a reminder, we like to keep it to 5 minutes, just because we have. Sure. Yeah. Yep, perfect. Okay.
Whoa.
Thank you for, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me, and thank you for taking public comment. I really appreciate it. My name is Chris Dennis. I'm a citizen of Sandwich. I am also a president of a nonprofit group named the Friends of Peters Pond. My family has owned property on the south side of Peters Pond for over 50 years. Peters Pond has always been a beautifully clean, spring-fed pond, making it the perfect spot for fishing, swimming, and recreation. Sadly, over the years, Peters Pond, like many others on the Cape, has fallen victim to high cyanobacteria levels. Research has shown that cyanobacteria grows from an overabundance of nitrogen and phosphorus. Most of this enters our ponds, lakes, and saltwater bays from our underground septic systems and above-ground stormwater runoff. I want to talk specifically tonight about stormwater runoff and the problem that we are experiencing with stormwater entering on the south side of Peters Pond. Over the past year and a half, the owners/developers of Sandwich Green, a 65-acre parcel of land that resides between Route 130, Pimlico Pond Road, and Peters Pond, have clear-cut approximately 9 acres of land in what appears to be an aggressive effort to start construction on this site. This clear-cutting of thick forest has resulted in stormwater making its way down Pine Road and West Road, and subsequently into Peters Pond. Even what appears to be a baby box turtle was swept down with the flow of water during a heavy rainstorm. I'd like to bring your attention to the handouts that I gave you. If we could just for a moment take a look at that. Okay, so on page 1, which is a orthographic site view of the development. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, it's very small, but you're going to see the numbers 12, 13, and 14. If you look at the this corner right in here. If you look between the numbers 12 and 13, if you can see that, there is the top of Pine Road, okay? If you want to correlate Pine Road on the large 11 by 17 handout that I gave you, highlighted in yellow, you will see Pine Road, okay? This is an entry point where the clear cutting has come up to, and stormwater from the clear cutting is going down Pine Road. The other road that it's coming down is West Road, and again, if you look at the orthographic picture number 14, if you see number 14, okay, that is right at the top of West Road. These are both dead-end roads, by the way. And it's a little difficult to see, but near number 14, you can see where some clearing has been done in the past. And the down gradient of those two roads goes down to Park Road, which is again on this 11 by 17. And then down Park Road, it goes into Peters Pond directly. So just to show what an aggressive storm can do, again, if you go to page 3 on your handout, you can see there is the beach where the water has breached across the beach and is entering the pond. Okay. The other handout, page 2, is just, those are pictures as a reference. If you could go to page 2, those are pictures that are a reference for the clear cutting that has happened. It's varying widths depending on where you are on the site. It's anywhere from 60 to 80 feet wide, and again, it's been calculated to be a little over 9 acres of cutting. So the thing that we also notice, and you may notice in those pictures, especially on page 2, is that there is an absence of any stormwater control or any control to stop the directive water flowing. Upon research, it seems that a CGP, which is also known as a Construction General Permit by NPDES, which is NPDES, for any construction site that disturbs more than 1 acre is required in order to manage construction sites' stormwater control. NPDES is the EPA's acronym for National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. I have pasted the exact description of what a construction general permit is from the EPA on the very last page of those handouts. So if you want, you have that as a reference, and the website is also at the top of that page. Currently, we have been unable to locate any permits or applications for construction or pollution control with regards to this site. Over the past few weeks, my colleague Don Clay and myself have made the planning board aware of these concerns. The planning board director said that they will be conducting a private meeting to address this problem with the developer. I'm informing the board tonight in an effort to bring you all up to date on my concerns as a citizen and as the president of our environmental pond group, Friends of Peters Pond. I want you all to know about the clear cutting without permitting, the stormwater problems as a result of it, and I would like your support as we work with the town officials on resolving some of these problems. I'm available to arrange a time if you would like to see the problem firsthand. You can reach me by phone or email. I want to thank you all for your time tonight to hear my concerns, and I hope you'll take advantage of my invitation to come and see this area for yourself. Thank you very much. Again, Chris Dennis.
Thank you. Anybody else for a public?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, good evening. David Sampson, 14 Cove Road. Just a few comments I wanted to share this evening. First, I just want to publicly recognize the work of this board, as well as the town manager, the assistant town manager, and Brian Schlegel in the excellent outcome from the renovation and opening of the new town hall infrastructure. I've been there multiple times as a customer, and it's a pretty incredible experience. And for those that haven't had the opportunity, I would encourage you to stop in. But I wanted to come by this evening. I spoke with Selectman Ellis earlier today. I ran into Chief Miller as well. And I noticed in tonight's packet, as well as the agenda, that there's a discussion regarding the process for liquor license applications and how that might work in the future. And given my extensive experience working alongside you, along with licensing, and as you know, I love a good licensing discussion, licensing is hard. And I think that we've seen the results of that here tonight. And in reading the proposed policy, and I'm unsure what the board's will may be around that, I wanted to share a couple thoughts that probably are worth considering as you review that document. Namely that effectively a competition or a contest that's created around how we issue liquor licenses could actually create as many challenges as it might solve some other problems. As a former selectman myself, I'd feel very concerned about being in a position to determine who gets that opportunity and who doesn't. But at the same time, and I know that we have seen this multiple times, when licenses are issued, very often promises and expectations are set, and the outcomes from those promises and expectations change over time. So what I would like you to consider as part of that policy, or any policy that might be created going forward, is there an accountability equation? And very often we face discussions and challenges as board members, members of the community, around what are the rules around licensing? How do we enforce rules around licensing? How do things like hours of operation come into play? And looking at our neighboring communities, the rules and regulations around those items vary quite a bit based on the local licensing structure, how the local licensing authority operates, whether it's a separate board, the Board of Selectmen, what rules and regulations have been established around licensing. And again, all of those, as you well know, align with the rules of the Commonwealth. The board is not at its sole discretion able to make those types of decisions. So I wanted to give you the thought of, if we're going to, as a town, look at how policies work around issuing licenses, Also, how does accountability enforcement work? Is this an opportunity to take a look at the larger picture and say, let's solve a number of problems at the same time? Let's answer these other questions so that folks have very good expectations going forward when it comes to challenges with licensing. As much as they may be few and far between, if a policy is going to be created, I would encourage you to take a look at the big picture and address as many items and concerns that fall under that umbrella as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else for?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Attorney Christopher Corain, also a resident of the town. I didn't know if there was going to be public comment taken on the policy, so I'll bring my concerns with the policy up tonight at the public forum. I would caution the board from adopting, the policy that's been part of this agenda. I'm guessing it was put forth by town council. It does seem somewhat reactionary based on what's been happening in the town. And I feel like some of the language in there seems tailored for a specific outcome, and which doesn't necessarily give a fair shake to other applicants who may be interested in getting this, applying for this license. To be upfront, I have a client who is also interested in this license, if one were to become available. So again, I don't know that he would be able to or get a fair hearing, based on the policy that's been set forth by town council. And otherwise, I think just in general speaking, the board has discretion when it comes to liquor license being issued. We always fall back to that general standard of, public need and common good. I think it only complicates the matter to start, having, more detailed, policies, as is what's been put forth. So, again, the board already has the discretion to issue licenses, on a variety of factors, as again, common good, public need, traffic, noise, things of that nature. So I don't know that this board needs to necessarily adopt another policy to address, again, what I think is more of a reactionary policy than, proactive. I would share, Mr. Peruga's frustrations and even what Mr. Sampson said about, maybe there needed to be, the town needed to be more proactive, with the licenses that haven't been used, but that is what it is at this point in time. So again, I would just caution the board from adopting any policy, has been set forth tonight. As I say, I don't think it's necessarily a fair, would be fair to all applicants who may apply. So again, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Anybody else for public forum? Going once? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the review and approval of minutes for 12/15/22. There's a packet, and the notes are in the packet.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Town manager report?
In terms of upcoming meetings, our next meeting is next Thursday. Some of the things that are scheduled are Chief Burke from the fire department is coming in about ambulance fees with some small proposed changes. And then we also want you to sign off on our emergency operations plan, which we're required to update periodically. So we'll be going over that with you. The Charter Review Committee is meeting next Monday night, January 9th, and that's going to be at 7 o'clock at Sand Hill Community Center. And I believe either John Giorgio or Lauren Goldberg from KP Law will be there to help go over the committee's questions that they've been having as they've been working on the charter. The MMA annual meeting of the Mass Municipal Association is running from the 19th to the 21st. That's one of the reasons we're not having a meeting on the 19th. We're still planning on doing the budget presentation the following Thursday on the 26th, but I know later on in the night we're going to talk about when to schedule that. And then lastly, I just wanted to update you, the Service Road Shared Use Path Project will be starting very soon. That's a Mass DOT project with Lawrence Lynch, a very well-respected local contractor, getting the award of the bid. Several subcontractors and utility companies will be there, and it will basically be on Service Road between exits 2 and 4 with a goal of starting construction on January 16th. They're already marking out where vegetation has to come down, and I want to stress that in Paul Tilton's word, it's going to get pretty ugly before it gets really pretty. And so, there's going to be vegetation coming down, construction work, all the rest. But in the end, it's going to look a lot better than it does today. And we're going to have a 6-foot plus wide path that the public will be able to use, for the most part, entirely off-road, with some few exceptions, again, between exits 2 and 4. I believe the total cost of the project, after all the money that we invested in doing the design work, which we had to pay for, which was well over $1 million, is close to $12 million. So it's a really important project that we've been working on for more than a decade. So we'll be anxious to see that get done. Don't have a good handle yet on how long the exact work's going to take. We'll know more once we get into it. They're going to try to keep both lanes open wherever possible. The few times they have to go into the road, obviously we'll have details and everything else. So mostly just letting the public know there's going to be a great path there in the future, but we're going to need to be patient for a while the work goes on. And that's it.
I had on my notes that I was watching, they've surveyed that whole,
Yes.
all the stakes are up, and they were in the intersection at Quaker Meeting House. So I got a feeling they're, like you said, they're very close.
Yep.
The other question I had, but you know what's been going on 6A by Quaker Meeting House?
No, there's a lot of Verizon trucks. It seems
They're
like
all night.
Yeah, but they've been in other parts of town too. So I'm not sure if they're rerunning some phone lines. I don't know. I can check on that. But no, they've been there for quite a while. And many trucks, yeah.
I wanted to remark on the beautiful view at the marina now, without that
Yeah.
building.
Yeah, the Harbor Master building's totally gone. It looks like they're putting in some more slips there.
We're going to try to get 2 or 3 in if we can, yeah. Yep.
So those of you that were on the list in 1992,
Two of you are going to
by
get
your
lucky.
phone,
Yeah.
right?
Phone calls tomorrow.
Anybody else? Bob?
Yeah. I'll start with the liquor license people. I know in other towns, I think in the Commonwealth too, in other states, when you're not allowed to serve alcohol, you bring your own. Is that a possibility that we could look into with the ABC and town council? That would help these people with a 3-month period.
My understanding is it can be considered. Again, I mean, these aren't the type of laws that we deal with every day, so we'd have to get Brian Riley's opinion on it. I have spoken to him about that within the last year, and my recollection is he said if you did something, you'd have to be like really careful on how you adopted it.
Yep.
And just be aware that sometimes you get pushback from those who have licenses saying, why are you giving them a leg up when we went through a process and paid for a license?
Can you look into it and let us know?
Can find out. I know
Possibility?
in many places it's where they don't have liquor licenses, like in Rhode Island.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'll check.
It's just one way that we could help these people out. I mean, if we can do anything,
Right.
until something happens.
And I think he strongly would recommend that if you did that, it would be beer and wine only, not
Right.
alcohol, because how do you regulate it?
We should have something.
And if you allow that in your establishment, the establishment owners still need to take responsibility for the amount that's consumed.
Right. Okay, well, we can look into it.
I just want, just one thing I think we ought to be careful about is there is a provision relative to that it cannot be a licensed premises. So we'll have to look closely at the holder of a seasonal license to make sure that they
I
aren't
was just gonna-
limited to the bring your own because they have a seasonal license, even though the seasonal license isn't active, they still are considered a licensed premise. I'm not saying I know the answer to that question, but it's the question to
I
ask.
think that was what partially came up
Yeah.
last time, was that is if you have a license, a liquor license of any type, that you are licensed to serve alcohol, but in those, I think the spirit of if my memory serves me, is that the spirit of the seasonal license was that you had to shut down, the liquor sales for those 3 months, specifically.
true.
because it's a seasonal license, right?
Right, but if they do not have a license within that timeframe, so
It's still they're still a license holder. I think that's what happened before, because we issued a liquor license of some sort to them and they currently have that precludes them. I'm not, I think that's
we can find out.
we can look into it for sure, yeah.
Next thing I got is the Village Green. From what we've seen here and what this lady has told us, how is that property owner allowed to let that water?
They're not. They were sent an extensive letter probably a week before Christmas, roughly. So, yeah, had been put on notice, and they're given time to rectify things and to come in, and I don't know if they have or not. But the proper departments have followed up on it and are looking at it.
Conservation, can we check with them and find out?
Yep.
What's going on?
They participated in drafting the letter.
But I can
so,
see it's quite a
yeah.
bit of runoff.
Yep.
Allowed. So,
Yep.
Okay, let's see.
It hasn't gone unnoticed.
Yep. Okay, I got something else. Go ahead.
Charlie?
Okay, I just have, and I think everybody has noticed the stakes on the service road. It's progress, as I'm infamous for saying. A commission on disability met yesterday, and they thank us for the parking space, the handicap space, and nicely marked out. And as I understand it, some signage is going in as well. The commission will also be reaching out to the town, as well as some volunteer agencies, in an effort to implement an American Sign Language introduction as offered through Deaf Inc., just to see who we can get together. Volunteers will be welcome, so we'll have to have that discussion. School committee meeting last night. District safety planning will be a topic of the Professional Development Day coming up in a couple of weeks. Dr. Marusiak made an early stage budget presentation for fiscal year '24. Over the course of the budget season, a package will be developed which best address the students as well as the community. And Mr. Murphy, the athletic director, presented a transition to the South Shore League as related to interscholastic sports activity, which we hope will provide more interest and greater competitiveness. And thank you.
Anybody else? Pat? Okay. We'll move on to correspondence, statements, announcements, future items, and follow-up. I think I have one. I think we saw it. I saw it in the paper, but it looked like both the Sagamore and Bourne Bridge funding got denied the first round. So
They got $1 million for prep work on the fringes, but that's
right,
it.
right. And then the other thing was that I don't know if you want to touch on that later, but the Section 111 monies were funded and approved through the Water Resource Act, which was huge. I know Bud, myself, and several other members of the staff were in contact with Senator Markey's office, Senator Warren's office, trying to get that pushed through. They did actually move the vote up, or requested it to be moved up prior to the January 1, so that if that did pass, that the money for the Section 111 would be included, which would also be hopefully yet to be seen, but because they were able to get that funded this year or before January 1st, that we're hoping that they can tie our project with the dredging of the canal at the same time in unison. So that's one project going back. But I don't know if you want to touch on that at all. But
Yeah, I know the Corps, they haven't made a final decision yet, but it was their hope if this got passed in time that they'd be able to combine the two projects, the canal and Scussit, into one. We know that we're limited at 225,000 cubic yards at Scussit, and that's firm. We've asked, I know that came up a couple meetings ago, but that's been asked several times. We have to do a bunch of scientific work after to prove it before they would even contemplate anything more from that in the future. And then, it's just whatever's in the canal.
Usually that's around 100,000.
Hopefully a little more, but yeah, we'll see. But it might not be the full 388,000, but hopefully it's close. Woods Hole Group is required as our permit on the dune and beach template to do annual eelgrass studies. So we just got one of the recent ones, and what they do is they map it over the approved area, and it's pretty clear that because it's been starved for sand so long, eelgrass is growing into that thing. So I'm sure we'll be prevented from putting stuff within some of the template that had previously been approved, but we don't control that. So all that will have to be redone before the work's done anyway. So that's just part of the deal. So hopefully the Corps will say that they're combining both projects. They were doing some internal work where they were doing that and asking the right questions. So that's really big about the time of year that they'd be doing the project. And I think they're shooting for October 1st to December 31st. So that's not that far away. So in a perfect world, they do both this, upcoming late fall, early winter.
In that initial information sheet I read that you supplied, it said all costs will be paid.
Right.
So does that remove the $12 million cap?
I don't know. I don't believe so,
Yeah,
but
it covers all costs for that specific project. And then what I've been working on with them is to try and get other legislation that requires the changing the Corps' playbook for dredging the canal, where then they are obligated to put it on our beach, so that would occur once every 5 to 7 years, depending on shoaling. And then we're also looking at trying to get a permanent funding vehicle in place, which sounds like it was possible. It was that they have to figure out how to get that verbiage, and it would be built into the Corps' budget, because we're the first 111 study to go through with the cap.
Wow.
So, and it's only happened 11 times prior, I believe, the 111. So it's a big deal. So
I think the canal decision they can make internally. It doesn't have to go to Congress. So
right.
Hopefully and I know the Concord people are trying to push that, so that's good.
I know last time the easement was a wall, so to speak, and this time it's a temporary one. Is that something that we should be working on with the people down
We
there?
don't have to do it now. We've shared what the proposed language would be, but they haven't finalized the language. My guess is it'll look just like what we gave to the residents. I don't think it'll be an issue with the changes that they made, but I can't say this enough. We have no leeway. It's whatever the Corps decides, and that's what has to be signed, black or white. There's no middle ground.
Right.
So if people want sand in front of their properties, where they have to give a temporary easement, they have to sign it. If not, it won't go there, and it'll go in other spots.
Is that something that we need to bring to the people? Or
Not yet. We don't have
We're gonna do it?
Yeah, it's not quite that time yet, but I would think hopefully late spring, early summer, we'd be doing that, which would be great.
Yeah.
But is it our responsibility or is it the Corps' responsibility?
The Corps' responsibility, but obviously we'd help them. The same people gave temporary easements for all the survey work, and everyone approved it. So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
It does have to be unanimous, but I think.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Anybody else?
Anything on the boardwalk? Is this
Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
Some limited permitting continued with the Army Corps for the matting. We've not heard anything further from ACOE or the Army Corps of Engineers on the matting. And we've had a few questions from the Coast Guard, and our understanding is that permit is, making its way through the upper levels of the Coast Guard.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to be quiet about this, but I changed my mind. And I think that the question to the town administration is indicative of what I consider to be the problem. And that is that, I pick up the newspaper and I read that the Coast Guard's now jurisdictionally in charge of the, that's how I found out. So, and the reason why I bring this up is because I've been very patient for 6 months about this. In 6 months of being on the board, we haven't had one single discussion among our board members about what's going on, where's our horizon, when's the drop dead date. I just think there's a lot of information that the public wants. I'm under significant pressure from people within this community to lead you. And unfortunately, they haven't had enough of my dear friend I love so much, Frank Penorfi, because Frank Penorfi is the one who has the greatest expression going, and that is that as a select board member, you're 20% of the vote. And you're no more than 20%. No more, no less. So when a local newspaper is pushing a select board member to lead other board members into a better solution, you're only 20% of the vote. We just don't have it. But I guess the unfairness that I feel is that in 6 months, I haven't had a chance to have a constructive discussion with the board about this. Where are we going? How long? When I reflect how many times I've heard information just kind of dribble out of administration about this, and I recognize we're all working on, you're working on a lot of other things, and I recognize that. And I also recognize that the board, you guys feel like this is done. You did it, you fixed this. You went to town meeting, you got the money, it's done, it's over. But for a whole lot of people out there, going without a boardwalk for that entire period was never presented them at town meeting. No one said at town meeting, hey, we're gonna fix this boardwalk, it's probably gonna take 2 or 3 years. If anything happens to it in the meantime, folks, you don't have a boardwalk. Nobody said that. Nobody told the people. And it's evidenced in our revenues for last summer, in the parking lot revenues for the boardwalk, which were a fraction of what they were in the years before. So I guess this is just my appeal to the board to reconsider how we're doing this, to reconsider and perhaps take a more pragmatic approach to this. You know, I've gotten my gripes in at times about this, but, you know, I carry the engineer's estimate for this project in my briefcase, and it's $1 million more than we have. And I've also driven down a lot of roads that are lousy in Sandwich, where we're holding off the money to fix roads because we might use it for the boardwalk. And what we did at town meeting, and something I think should be a subject of discussion, is we mixed two things together in a capital article, which I didn't agree with then, I don't agree with now. The boardwalk should have stood on its own, and roads should have stood on their own. So I'm waking up in the morning, I'm picking up a newspaper, there's an editorial telling me I need to lead you to fix this boardwalk. And then I get letters to the editor from people who were involved in the previous appeal. And they know I know how to do this. They know it can be fixed. And nobody told them you were going to go without a boardwalk. And now we know, based on the bid date, if everything's correct that's been coming out of this end of the table, there's no project this year. You don't even have a bid opening till the 17th of February. Before we can approve a contract and sign documents and exchange with the bidder, herring will be coming up that river, and we will not be working there. So we're going to go another whole summer without a boardwalk. And as I told you before, I fixed this before. Our town departments have fixed this before. When I look at the work that our town staff did over at our new building, it's phenomenal workmanship, and they're a phenomenal crew. And natural resources. You know, we didn't have a natural resources department like we have now years ago. They're a capable group of people. If you turned them and the Public Works Department loose on the boardwalk with the money we already have, our own engineering department's already told us it's $211,000, and we'd have our boardwalk back for this summer. That's what I'm looking for. Anybody can go after the big money and totally rebuild the boardwalk. And I'm not sure we're going to, because I think you're gonna end up having to go to town meeting. And all I'm asking for is some agenda time so we can have a discussion about this and kind of get an idea of what's real and what's not. Do we have a project for this year or not? Can we do it this summer or not? I don't know the answer to those questions, but neither do the people out there, or they wouldn't be writing editorials about me trying to lead you into this kind of a discussion. Unless you have the discussion, unless it's part of this agenda, then people don't know how you feel. Maybe they'll learn that they shouldn't be going after the 20% of the solution they already have, that they ought to be going after the other 80%. Maybe that's what's important about this, is for me to turn this back on them, to say, you shouldn't be calling me, you should be calling Bobby George, Mike Miller, Charlie Holden, or Chairman Hochter. Because they're the ones who have made the decision to leave the boardwalk and not have a boardwalk this summer. And ignoring it, and ignoring the fact that we're not gonna get the project out this year, is recognizing and accepting that we're not gonna have a boardwalk for the summer. And to me, that's just not acceptable. I don't know. I apologize. I've done this to you before. It hasn't gotten me anywhere, but I just had to get it off my chest.
Yeah, so, just because, Pat, I just want to address some of that because, when we went through the bid process or the initial approval of the boardwalk back with the road, I remember specifically saying, my worst fear is that we have a winter storm that damages it beyond repair, and we're halfway through permitting, we're halfway through, the approval process, and that my fear is that if we don't, I would much rather, I think that the term that I used was, I think I would much rather be in the driver's seat than the reactive seat or something to that effect. Specifically to the last 6 months, I think that, and I'll speak partially for Bud and Heather and the conversations that I've had with them, and they can, feel free to jump in and correct me, but, our level of frustration with the permitting process is 140% above normal. I mean, it is just, I can tell you that it has been an arduous process. In my eyes, it's been an unfair process for the town. We have several groups in town that are, very good at writing letters. They're very good at hitting pressure points in groups to, threaten litigation, threaten, the powers that be that make some of these decisions, that they should be doing something. They're very good. And it's not, and I know that some of them are picking their keyboards up right now as I'm talking, and it's not coming from a place of distrust. It's not coming from a place of anger or frustration. They truly care about the boardwalk and what the end result is, and I appreciate that. And the frustration that I have is that when we started this process with specifically the Corps of Engineers, all the documentation that they needed to make the decision that it was a Coast Guard project was stapled literally to the application. They did not do a feasibility study as to whether or not they had jurisdiction over the project from day one. Had they done that on the first week of accepting the application, they would have realized that this was not in their purview, that they have, certain other groups and organizations that are inside, they have the right to, some of the permit, very minor, birds, fish, things that they have to get consultant, letters on. But I think that our application was in since June, correct? And we waited all the way until right before Christmas with the meeting, and they said, it's not us. So the whole time that we were doing that, we were following up. I know myself, I even called the permitting officer's boss's boss to try and say, this is like taking way too long. We have this boardwalk that we're trying to replace for spring, for summer. And, you know, and some of the stuff, you know, we do have to kind of play tight to the vest because of the environment that we're operating in. You know, and it's not that we're trying to be deceitful or hiding. It's that, you know, if we said that we're, you know, it's going to be 11 feet, there's within hours, there's emails and letters saying it should be 10 feet, it should be 12 feet, it should be, you know, and the people that are doing the permitting are saying, well, you know, and they're getting bombarded by this, and then it's their boss coming down. And I can tell you that the calls that we're on with them, you know, we're very, you know, professional, we're prepared, ready to go. I know that came up on some of the things that they were unprepared. I mean, we have literally every question that they asked, we've said that we've submitted that, we've contacted the other group, they're aware that this is coming. Can you please send the letter out requesting the sites, you know, the survey, the study, the approval, whatever? And the answer that we got back was, I'm going on leave for Christmas. I can't possibly get the letter out before then. It's Thanksgiving next week. I have other projects ahead of your project. We have a really big project, 2 really big projects before yours. You know, so we've been pushing and pushing and pushing for really the last 6 months, and it's been trying to push a boulder up a hill while standing on grease. And it's been extremely frustrating. And, you know, we delayed the opening of the bids in the hope that the first time that we were more or less promised the permit, I think, by Thanksgiving. That was the initial thought, was that they would have a decision for us by Thanksgiving, which would allow us to open the bids and then proceed forward this winter. Then it got pushed out another 3 weeks. Then it got pushed out a following 3 weeks because there was another hearing that they wanted to have with one of the groups, you know, separately. So all these things, these delays that took extra time, extra review, delayed it, and it did push it out to February because, as you know, we can't sign for a contract without having the money or the permits in hand as set forth by the rules. So it has been, I mean, personally, myself and the phone calls that I've made on this, it has been, the red tape on this is, I mean, there's not a knife sharp enough to go through it. I mean, it has just been extremely frustrating. And I got to tell you, the agencies that issue these permits and reviews, there is absolutely no sense of urgency on their behalf. We've talked about and we've raised all those points, you know, tourism dollars. You know, we said and actually one of the permitting agents brought it up. Oh, I read all about Sandwich in I think it was the Boston Globe or whatever, you know, top 10 places to go, but the boardwalk's broken. You know, that's in the article. So we said, yes, we want to fix that so everybody can come down here. And it was just, you know, we'll get to it when we get to it. And then at the end of it, waiting 6 months, we're all waiting on the phone saying, we thought the permit was coming because she called a special meeting. You know, we're not responsible for this. So and we've been in contact with the Coast Guard and, you know, Bud and Heather's. They've been doing an excellent job contacting them, and we actually spoke to them prior, you know, during the application process because we said, we have this, yep, no problem. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. It's been extremely frustrating, and we haven't had it, you know, really a public hearing or been public about it because there was really nothing to share because we had no permit in hand, we had no approvals, we had no path forward, so we kept, you know, holding off because if we had gotten that permit, we would have been, you know, clear sailing. So.
And I understand all that, and I appreciate that reply. But what I'm talking about is what the public wants, and a good number of them. I went to a townie funeral 2 weeks ago, and other than, you know, gee, I can't believe how old you are, the only other things that people asked me about was, what's going on with the boardwalk? Why can't you guys fix the boardwalk? What people want to see is they want to see us deliberate about the boardwalk and want to make a decision, okay? Is the boardwalk going to be open this summer? Who's making that call now? That's just out there because it's based on a bid date and a potential acceptance of a contract and then the potential for having the money or not. And then beyond that, it could be delayed further because we can't get a qualified contractor or their bid bonds don't come through. I I know how all this works, and those delays are all gonna get packaged in. What the public wants is they want to see this board say, no, we're willing to live with the boardwalk being closed for another full year, and we're not gonna spend the money to fix it. We're not gonna go down there and fix it, and tough, you don't have a boardwalk. And that's what they want. That's what I want. I want this board to make that vote. That's a decision to be made. That's not just something that should happen.
I have to say this, Pat. What engineer or what building inspector is gonna sign off on permits to fix something that is unsafe and then plan on tearing it down in 6 months after you spend $300,000 to temporarily fix it? Our liability, if you fix that thing the way it is now, I walked it again the other day, you are asking for trouble. Because somebody gets hurt on that, they fall off. We already know the ADA requirements. There's no way you can do the ADA requirements by fixing that boardwalk. And it's not just that people feel like it should be there. I walked it every single day for 20 years now, and I miss it. But I'm certainly not, as a Board of Selectmen's member, responsible for 20,000 people, gonna put our reputation at risk, our insurance, our process, when we already have made a decision. It's been delayed, you're right, Shane, and it's been delayed, I think, unnecessarily. I think this thing could have been built and in place no matter what it looked like, and after 6 months, no one would care what it looked like, because it was a boardwalk you could walk across. And we've now spent, what, 3 years? And we may miss it again, you might be right. I don't know how much work will be allowed, if the bids come in okay and we can get started. I don't know what the window is. We could have a storm and take out the rest of it anyway. As a matter of fact, the water was probably 6 inches above it last week. I'm sure it moved those boards that are on the other end that are already twisted more. So, I mean, that's the elephant in the room. I mean, if there was an easy fix, we would have done it. There's no way that I would sign off as a selectman and fixing that boardwalk in any way, shape, or form, because it's gonna cost you more than $300,000 if you get somebody to sign off and say that you should do it.
But if you took that standard, Mike, we would have had about 9 brand-new boardwalks by now, because bigger sections of the boardwalk have been missing in years back in the 80s, 90s, and beyond. And there's so much wood out there that's been put in the last 10, 15 years that potential liability thing is just something that
Oh, it's there. You
it
still,
always was.
yeah, but you have to,
Always
somebody has to put their name on a permit.
Yeah, that's right.
Some town employee
That's
puts
right.
us on the hook.
Right.
They put their
That's
name on that
exactly right.
permit.
Every day that you put a town truck out on the road, every day that you put a cruiser on the road, every day that potential liability exists for the
But
town.
I put cruisers out there
Shouldn't
when they were inspected and repaired and in proper shape.
Right. And you fixed a lot of them that had
And that's
needed repairs, right?
the same thing applies to that boardwalk.
Exactly.
It is unsafe. It's been declared unsafe by all of our people. We paid
Irreparable is the
we
word
paid
used.
15,000 or more for a historic architect that the group wanted,
I understand all that.
and he stated in a public meeting that he thought it could be repaired, but after reviewing it, he said it couldn't be. But yet now we still have phone calls and letters going to every step of this process, despite us doing all that. And I just think that the time has come, we want a boardwalk. We did away with the plank engraving process because it became a super burden that just wasn't gonna be able to be met and serve the time frame, or it got tie it up even more. And I just think what the people really want is a boardwalk. Simple as that. And the reason, Patrick, we went through all this was of all those years where we were repairing it, where it was breaking apart, where it was underwater. So we pushed to have a proper built, ADA acceptable boardwalk, and that's what we're trying to do. Bob?
Patrick, I think everybody's hit the nail right on the head here, including you. And my question to you would be, how are you gonna correct this? You're gonna wave the magic wand and everything will get fixed? How? I think everybody's done the best they can. And this thing that we just got hit with the Coast Guard, we never saw that coming. That's not our fault. So what's your way to fix it? How are you gonna get it done? If you've got a way to get it done and get around all these permits and all that, then without the liability, bring it on. But I don't know. None of us got the answer. What's your proposal?
That wasn't what I was proposing. And I do think that there is a way to do it.
How?
And I agree with some of what Mike said about how bad it is, but then again, after Hurricane Bob, there were 500 and 600-foot sections of the thing just missing. So, see, I just don't have I don't have that perspective. And I also know this, you can put a brand-new boardwalk out there and you're gonna have damage to it. We're gonna get damage to our new boardwalk, and we're gonna have to go out and fix it. And you're gonna have to be committed to that and recognize that no matter how good you do it, no matter how good this boardwalk is, especially this boardwalk with the heavy railings, because they're gonna be more susceptible to wind load from ice and snow, and that's gonna get pushed around. And then when we go to repair it, it's helical coils, so it can't be fixed by your DPW. You're gonna have to hire a contractor to go down there and put helical coils back in. So your construction method that you chose has a direct impact on your long-term capacity to be able to repair it.
That's why we have the engineers, Patrick. That's why we had all the studies. It's a 30-year process. That's what they're saying. You know as well as anybody, we're raising it to what, probably 2 feet?
Yeah.
About 2 feet from what it is now.
Yeah.
And I don't think the water's been over 2 feet in my lifetime. A foot, but I said, and it's an engineered project. It isn't like we didn't.
The other thing I think that's changed, and this I think became apparent in some of the meetings that I sat through with the engineers and whatnot, is that I remember when a caller, because initially I did try to do the volunteer thing, back before I was on the select board, and to get a volunteer repair crew in there, is that in my lifetime at 44 years old, I'm the last generation that saw the wink, nod, and handshake permitting or repair process. So what's happened is, and I think that the changes from the 80s and 90s to where we are today is that, terms like liability, risk, litigation, insurance coverage, injury, those key catchphrases that come in, ADA compliancy, safety, all those things when they come into play now, we have to follow a rule book that's set forth to make it safe, engineered. We have to comply with all the public wage laws, public bidding laws, all those things that we have to follow through. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, it was kind of like, like we'll say, we can fix it ourselves. We can do this. We can do that. And I think that on a lot of those things that more or less, I don't want to say that the ship has totally sailed, but to your point, of getting like a volunteer work crew to go back down there, I think the amount of red tape when we asked about doing that, I mean, it just was like insurmountable.
Sailed a long time ago.
Right. So I think that things have changed to that. Unfortunately, in a project like this, that would be great to have the public come back and do something, but it's not feasible at this time, I think.
I recognize that. That's why I wasn't suggesting that.
Right. But we can talk about, we'll take that part offline and we can talk about it. Anybody else? The staff meeting open, we're gonna skip that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll move on to old business, the fiscal year 24 budget update, initial thoughts, presentation, timeline, new format.
Yeah, just wanted to give you a quick update. We've been spending more time trying to get things ready for the end of the month on the FY24 budget and presenting it to the board. It's fair to say, in trying that new format that we've talked about, it's taken quite a while to enter some of the historic info. And as the board knows, where 4 of our 7 union contracts were only resolved in the last month or so, trying to update for the new wage schedules and everything has taken a bit. So I thought I'd just share a few things with you just as a precursor. But if you look in your packet, just to show you what our budget would look like under the new format, it just sort of has a one-page summary. A one-page summary of the total budget broken out by personnel costs and operating expenses. Some graphs comparing, this upcoming year versus last year, and also a graphic representation of how much of the grand total general government budget and then the total town budget as a whole is made up. And then I just wanted to show you what some of the details would look behind it. And in past years where this was, these pages would follow every single cover sheet for each department. We're now just going to have cover sheets for every department and then a master list of all the personnel expenses and people broken out by department so people can still track it. And then it'll probably be like, 7, 8 pages long, and then probably a similarly length one for all the operating budgets. So I just thought I'd show you, it lists all of us to the dollar as it always has. And if you look on the page after, it just shows you some of our operating costs. One of the things that Bill Jennings and Kathleen Barrett, our finance director and town accountant, have been working on is most of our departments, even the smaller ones, have too many operating budget accounts, so they're trying to get those to fewer ones. Something like DPW has 20 operating accounts, and they probably need it because it's bigger. There's a lot of operating money. For us, we've only got a handful of things, so we're narrowing it down. We hope to only 4 different lines in the future. So the total amount hasn't really changed in most budgets, but we're trying to reduce the number of different accounts. This is really, really rough, what I'm going to say next, because it changes every day, and every time we think we have it solved, shifting to a new format, we find out things we left out, or God forbid you leave one person off. It makes a huge difference when you add that salary in. I mean, if I had to guess, and this is all in, including, those changes that we talked about that we're going to have to do to realistically fund utilities. We're trying to look at some of those additional costs when the Center for Active Living opens. I would guess the base operating budget on the general government will be somewhere between 3% and 4%. And speaking with Dr. Maruschek before Christmas, again, this is all still in the works and still in draft form. I think he's looking at a similar number around roughly in that range. So when I get it all together, as always, there'll be a 1-page summary that'll show how we balance the budget with what we're looking at. And I don't see any problem whatsoever with that. In fact, we're probably going to be able to still have a very, very large excess levy reserve. We'll probably be able to put more towards capital than we have in the past. We'll probably be able to put more money towards OPEB than we have in the past. So it's still in good shape, even with the numbers that I talked about. And it will be difficult where we won't see a state budget for a couple months later than we usually do. But again, I think if we just factor in level funding of revenues and planned on the expenses, particularly related to kids going to schools and other public choices, that going up more than normal, I think that's the most prudent thing to do. So that's what we'll be showing you. I think we're struggling about what do we sort of want to give you in a binder, because we have so many other internal spreadsheets we're working on that's part of the bigger one. My guess is we're only going to include in your binder, not all that stuff that people don't need to see, because we're trying to track when we consolidate the number of budget accounts, where are we taking it from, highlighting things in different colors. No one needs to know that. So I think that'll be our struggle over the next few weeks to try to get it ready for the 26th. Especially when you throw in that Mass Municipal Association meeting that's going to take up 2 or 3 days. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I know we'll have our budget presentation on the operating budget ready to go on the 26th. We have kicked around the idea of focusing on the operating budget on the 26th, and then maybe at the next meeting, the first meeting in February, doing some of the more historic stuff on some of those bigger cost items like tuition assessments and other things. And we're trying not to sort of give you the same old that we have every year, even though the information's the same. I don't know, it seems like we've presented that so many times. Maybe just focus on a couple of the highlights that are impacting us more recently. And on the historic information we were talking, we have over literally 25 years worth of data on every single topic that's in that binder. We think we only need to show you probably 5 years. So I think what we're going to do is we'll have that data, but we'll hide those cells so you're not looking at, this much on a page. You're just looking at the more recent, the more relevant things. But if someone wants to see it, you can easily click on it and it would open it up. And we're trying to do as many links as possible. So if any of the board members wanted the budget on a stick as well as in a binder, you could have it at home, click on it, it would take you right to the backup for that, where we came up with that number. So, Bill's done a ton of work on this. And I have to say, trying to get the wages exactly right in the public safety departments has been really hard because that's where there's so many people, there's so many different incentives and other things that they have that other departments don't, and we just resolved those contracts. So that's taken some time, but without a doubt, it will be ready on the 26th. I just don't want to, I don't know exactly if you'll get half a binder or a full one yet,
So,
but it'll
just
be in
for
good shape.
the public's point of view, though, our format may change for us.
Yes.
The public will still have the same access they've always had.
Public will have the same access that the board does, and it'll have the same link. So I think what we're going to do is we always save the Excel spreadsheets as PDFs, but we can save them with links. So yes, whatever the board gets given, the public's going to have access the same day to the same information throughout the budget process.
Sure. That's great. Thank you. Very important. Yep.
And I think, and I mean this sincerely, like one of the things Bill and I have talked a lot about, like after you and the finance committee see it, we want you to critique it. Like, okay, we like this better, or no, let's go back to the old way next year. I'm not going to do it this year. Or, you know, like it would help if we could have a few more things and, you know, this stuff that you've been giving us, we appreciate it. We know you have it. If we need to look at it, but we don't need to show us every year.
You don't have to kill that many trees, but.
Yeah, I don't think we have to.
gonna say, yeah,
Exactly. And it's like,
tree or two
I don't know. I think in that sense, the detail will be there, but it won't be as thick, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm really going to work hard on not giving you the same 40-page presentation that we have the last 15 years, even though it's worked impeccably and never been turned down by a single vote at town meeting. Just saying.
Well, don't go.
No, I know. But I'm going to,
I was ignoring that one.
we're going to call that down too.
Okay.
And again, don't hold me to an exact number, but I think it's probably going to be between 3% and 4% that you're going to see as the general government increase, and I'll explain it all.
Anybody have any other?
I think the big thing is going to be the school budget, like it always is.
Yeah. And then we have to make a decision on the 26th.
Yes. So on the 26th, Chief Wax retirement gathering is that evening at 6. So I was just trying to think, would the board be open to maybe meeting at 2 o'clock that afternoon? It is the budget presentation. If we try to keep that the only item on the agenda, it'll still probably go an hour and a half or two.
Yep.
And Bill Jennings is flying up, so I don't want to waste, his time either.
Do you want to do that at the other town hall or still do it here?
Why don't we do it here? But you want to say 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
Is that too early or is that okay?
That's good.
Awesome. Thank you.
You can buy lunch.
Yep.
Just throw that out there. Wastewater implementation and nitrogen sensitive area update.
Yeah, just super quickly. I know we shared with you that the state extended the public comment period to the end of the month. So we are going to submit something. And I think what we're going to focus on is remind them of the letter we sent before. I believe the town has taken a lead role in saying that we support the new regulations, but hopefully, because we want to start implementing, but we hope the state will be more flexible too. But I think the bigger questions we have now that we've taken a look at things closer, just as some examples, and I put in your packet, I thought Ed Leonard from Wright Pierce did a really good summary of his review of the regulations and like some of the questions that I think all the Upper Cape should have as we try to work with the JBCC. But one of the concepts is, and I think Dave Mason and Heather were at a Realtor meeting yesterday morning, and it's clear that they have concerns that if people are going to be forced to go to the new septic systems within 5 years, and a huge misunderstanding on is it the entire town or just portions of the town. So I think what we thought is once we get past this, like the end of the month in the budget process, maybe in February, we should do some more public outreach about what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do the watershed plan, because it buys us 20 years, not 5. And we know in those areas, we're looking at a bigger group solution as opposed to individual ones. Because in the long run, I don't think the individual ones will meet the thresholds and the numbers we have to meet ultimately. So,
Quick question. If you go to the regional one,
yeah.
would that take over the watershed things we were actually trying to set up with Mashpee and all that?
Yeah, it would.
Would just eliminate?
Yeah, the regional one would, I guess each watershed would have to get its own permit through DEP on how you're going to address that watershed. So you're right, what we did with Pompanesett, where it spelled out percentage responsibility for each town, and then that would be looked at as things were implemented. You know, we now need to put some meat to those bones. Like, the bones are good. We need to put on there, you know, we're going to address this by Sandwich, you know, doing sewerage in these areas at JBCC. Mashpee's going to do separate sewering. Barnstable's going to, I don't know, join us or do something different on their own. Like, that's what we need to do.
I also thought I saw on the federal bid website that there's a bunch of things that they put out to bid already surrounding the wastewater over there.
It might, which would be great.
I think that's a good idea, that a public outreach, because I know there are a lot of misunderstandings on people who don't understand that it isn't that we're dealing with Mill Creek and that we're dealing with Scorton Creek like we thought
Yeah.
35 years ago, that it's the ponds.
Yeah.
It's our
It is.
internal bodies of water that are most threatened and our most benefit, really, from this approach.
And in this
I think
part of town, it's depth to groundwater, not
Right.
nitrogen, but they
Exactly.
still need sewering.
We'll
Yeah.
need sewer. Yep,
Yep.
exactly.
I think that list on 2 of 5 there, which actually
Yeah,
dates
exactly.
which ones are not and which one are, and it's right back.
Yeah.
Sandwich Harbor is not.
No, it's not. So, like
All it
years
is.
ago, we thought that was,
Yeah.
that was gonna be where we would.
Yeah.
And the early sewer projects, 81 and 83, were targeted towards the village.
Yeah. The only thing I don't see on here, Bud, and it was brought up to me by somebody that lives there, a Town Neck.
Yeah, so the interesting
that
thing,
fit into this?
it's depth to groundwater. It's not, because all that water flows to the bay and the bay's in good shape for nitrogen, but depth to groundwater,
Yeah.
people are calling left and right from Town Neck saying, when's the sewering coming? Because we don't want to have to put in another $30,000-$40,000 system.
It's all
No,
clear.
because it's cheaper to hook up to a sewer.
Yeah.
This is also something where there are going to be overlapping land use decisions that we're going to have to make pursuant to sewering as we go into the future. Now, I'll give you an example. On 50 by 100 lots in Town Neck, people are installing irrigation systems
That's right. Yeah.
with an on-site septic system on a 50 by 100 lot. They're installing irrigation systems all over these same areas we're talking about, these watersheds into these ponds. Every day, someone puts in another irrigation system. Another 300,000 gallons annually for roughly an acre parcel that's added to that watershed, driving this contaminated stormwater and sewer water into our ponds. We need to regulate that. We're going to end up with a nitrogen bylaw, and I really think we're going to end up with some kind of an irrigation bylaw. We can't just stand back at the same time of enacting $100 million worth of sewer. You can't turn around and and say to the public, hey, go knock yourself out. You know, have the greenest lawn on the planet. We'll just chuck another 100 million at it.
And if you check on those 50 by 100 foot lots, some of those systems are probably not on their own property.
Oh, and they're deep. They're so deep.
Oh, man.
They were putting them in. You could drive
Oh.
by the lot, see
I
the
did
top
one.
of the excavator.
I did one. It was 48 feet.
Yeah. We'd have to
48
terrace them
feet.
down. We'd have to
Yes.
shelve them down and then dig our way out.
Holy God.
Actually, it was I think we had a 315 or a 330 excavator that was 12 feet down in the hole on a shelf, digging down. That was scary.
So those are things we're going to have to really think about, because
I think our two other biggest concerns are that whole requirement about addressing 75% of the problem within 20 years. Well, what if we're at 54% and we've spent $80 million?
yes.
They shouldn't smack us too hard. And then, so we want to say that, but also, and we don't think this will happen, but hypothetically, take Pompanesett for as an example. We all signed that agreement. What if, I'm just doing this as an example. I don't want to upset Mashpee, but if Barnstable and Sandwich say, yeah, we're all in, we're doing this watershed permit, and Mashpee says, no, forget it, we're going to do it on our own. Well, then do we still get the 20 years? Because we've agreed to try to do something, but we have to do it as a group.
Well, and if
So-
their bays
Yes.
improve,
Right,
when do we stop paying?
exactly.
Because remember, we've got to pay for the 3 watersheds now. So we need to know what's the barometer on when do we stop paying? How many parts per million do we shut the switch off?
And that whole thing about
First, we're on the top.
you get more bang for the buck by giving Mashpee $5 million to address a problem closer to the end source
Yeah.
than doing a $30 million solution here.
a
So
whole-
there is going to be that nitrogen credit trading that is going to happen.
Yeah, it's a
That's all
credit.
factored
it's a
into our
credit to the
plans.
commission and the 201 that we were able to get that reconciled before we started spending money.
So our goal
It's
is,
easy to talk about it then.
I don't know how we'll get it by next week, but we're not meeting the 19th, 26th, the budget. So maybe I'll just give you some quick bullets for next week on what we plan to include in the letter. And if you guys are good with it, we'll just roll with it and flesh it out more. And get it in. The other thing I wanted to tell you, I know we did a little bit of this update. We had a great meeting with Senator Moran's office, Representative Exaros himself, and his office about the special act. Got them a bunch of information. John Giorgio is copied on it, so in case the state legislative attorneys have questions, so they're going to file that. They're going to try to file that this month. They're also going to work with other representatives from the Upper Cape to see if it makes sense to file something that would help the other communities out as well, just as an option. And then Heather reiterated the need for other towns to try to give us letters of support. So when we'd already gotten Barnstable's in November, I think, but within the last week, we've gotten the support from the Cape Cod Commission, Bourne, Mashpee, talked to them yesterday. They're finalizing it. So we're getting some of these letters of support, which is great. And again, we're doing our best, so.
I mean, this wishful thinking, but shouldn't this all lead to the state saying, great, Joint Base Cape Cod's a great way to go.
It should, but we'll see. I think that's about it for now.
Just quickly on the long line, what are we doing about the high school septic issue?
Yeah, so the problem there, if you remember, is we got the 800, whatever, 40-something thousand from the commission, from the county to help with the improvements. But we said all along, we wanted to have that signed administrative consent order from DEP because we don't want to do something and then find out we didn't do what they wanted us to do. And I'm just being honest, ever since Brian Dudley retired a year ago, nothing.
Wow.
So at some point, because we have to spend that money, I think by the end of 2026 or October 2026, so we have to get going on that. We know what we think we need to do, but we really want to get DEP sign off before we spend the money to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Supposed to get any more of that money?
That was they haven't offered anything else yet to apply for.
They're supposed to
Do
get.
we have a designer?
Yeah, Ray Pierce did. We have 2 studies like this thick on what we need to do, but you're right. We have to take it to designs, and then it's mostly to repair one of the trains,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
just to buy us time until we can connect everything to a sewer line. That's a good point. We should, yeah.
But the other 2 schools are all set, right?
Yeah, well, there's some I think it's 50 to 100 they need to spend to disconnect from the
Paddle wheel.
Yeah, from the wastewater plant and just go right to a Title V septic. As long as we, within a certain number of years, connect them to a sewer line, this DEP said they'd be good with it.
They have a Title V now?
They have a Title V leaching fields in both schools, thankfully.
Yeah.
But there is some work we have to do on the flows and
To
stuff.
bypass that
Yeah.
paddle thing in there. Okay. Liquor license availability, draft board policy. They all left.
I know.
You were excellent in your presentation. That's right.
I agree.
I was
Do you
gonna say
want me
they all went out for a drink, but that might be too soon.
to lay this one out a little bit
Right.
for you?
Yes, please.
One, I thought the comments were really interesting and I think are helpful to the discussion that you should have on process relative to the issuance of liquor licenses. And this really is a straw man proposal to start the discussion, which starts with the threshold. Would the board like a policy for the issuance of all alcohol liquor licenses or any other liquor licenses to that effect? We know that there are multiple interests in the potential 1 or 2 all alcohol licenses that could be available in the next 6 months. Previously, this board, I believe, has really handled things on a first-come, first-served basis. We are all personally aware of at least 4, 2 seasonal, 2 that have other liquor licenses that are interested. So rather than jockeying for position in terms of when you get your application in, is the board interested in looking at another type of a policy that would set some of the parameters that really relate to serving the public? So this really is a straw man. It's not related to any particular individual. It sort of takes into the thoughts that are in the approach to issuing liquor licenses and all the items that you need to keep in mind. So it just lays out an application process, a time frame, some parameters that you may use for making decisions. We certainly can read this, but we thought we would lay out the concept for you initially. If it's something that you think you'd like to talk about a little bit more, we can certainly talk in more detail.
I guess the question becomes is, we have the authority to do this anyway, right? But we want to make it clearer, or other boards maybe, you know.
I think it's setting the expectation for the prospective applicants is the issue.
Because I think two things, like, for me, it was like, the reason I asked us to start addressing this is because when you have 4 applicants for 1 license, you have 3 losers that leave, and they have, I think the people that get rejected, I think actually have the ability to appeal the decision, based on so what you can run into is that these licenses get tied up, and I mean, there would be a decision made ultimately, but that was one thing, is that I thought that there should be some sort of a process. And I know the attorney that was here, the second attorney that spoke at public forum, we're not, the point of this policy is not, to your point, it's like to set reasonable expectations for an applicant, because, when there's a rumor that a license is being turned in, people are showing up down at town hall, like, handing in their application, going like, I'm first, right? Like, I got, this is my, that kind of thing. So, the other thing that I did bring up with Bud and Heather as well with town council was, that I wanted to bring up at least, was to put in some sort of a provision as well, because I think that in the last 3 licenses that we've issued, we've had follow-up hearings all on the last 3. So it was the seal, the septic issue that we had to have them come back, and we said, like, what's a realistic time frame? Ars Tapas never opened up, and then we had Bobby Burns do the renewal late, which we now have to do a whole. So there's we are following the correct process, but one thing that I was possibly thinking that maybe we should add is that when they come in and they sign for that license, because in the current status where we don't have, if we got these extra 10 licenses, it might be a different environment, but whereas these are so competitive to get, that you would sign something that says that you will be open in 6 months, and it is a hard 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, if you have to come back in for a hearing if you're not going to be open, but that you would voluntarily turn the license back in if you're not, unless there was some, like the building burned down or, something extenuating to that extent, but they would come back in. And I think we're checking the legality of having them sign something like that, but it's basically a voluntary turn-in
I
process.
think you should do that because we do it anyway. Chris Wilson, we had him come in a number of times within a reasonable, and I don't see any problem with that. The other issue that I had too, and what I think Sampson was trying to address was, I'm confused a little bit about, so we issue a license and somebody uses it once a week. We've never addressed, is that something we should bring them in for?
That's one of my questions.
Yeah.
I think what's hard is, you'll recall, when you approve a license, it has hours of operation in there. So it's almost like, are you honoring your hours of operation is probably the question, because
Yeah.
you're right, they all have to spell out when they want it valid. The
Because I'm
time
sure
between-
there are groups that
Yeah.
are not open, that are doing it now. And we've just never addressed it. And I think that maybe was what David was trying to get at, was maybe we should really look and see what we're allowed to do. I read 77, 138, 77. I mean, it's this big and it's wide open. I mean, it really says to us, you know, you can do what you want, but there's a commission that can review on appeal, and we can make the final decision, not you.
Right.
I mean, but maybe we should, if we're gonna do a policy, we could build some of that stuff in there, so we shouldn't be having to deal with this. I mean, we relied on their honesty and
Right,
truthfulness and willingness to support business, that's what we did. But we really got stung on
The last three.
that last one, yeah.
We have, go ahead, Bob.
Same thing, I got hours of operation, we're seeing that some of them are not utilizing their licenses all the time. We've noticed that. We ran into this other applicant with, all requirements weren't met when they got their license. That's something else we have to address with this. And the other thing is, we don't have to make any decisions for 6 months. So we have time, we don't have to vote on this
Yeah,
tonight.
oh, I wouldn't vote on it tonight.
But, you know, there's things we can look at. We can maybe ask other towns how they go about it with their problems, to get some input, you know? So there's some of my concerns that we have.
A business person brought this up to me too, just to bring up in our discussion. When you do have everything in place, I talked about this before the meeting, you have everything in place. You can open the door tomorrow, all you're waiting for is the license. We give them the license, and then like Marshland too, they can't serve booze for 3 months because ABCC didn't send the license, they're part of it. So he said, that's, when we're talking about, do we do it ahead of time, or do we do it like when everything's absolutely there? Either way, there can be issues, so.
I mean, Mr. Chairman.
No, good.
It's such a challenge for the local business, for the entrepreneur to try and determine that they're going to open something. If they have, the liquor license gives them the financial backing
Yeah.
to allow them to make the investments that they need. So I think it's fairly standard for municipalities to issue the liquor license without everything being done, with an expectation that it will be within a time frame. So that, putting a time frame on it makes an awful lot of sense, but to expect that that would be done at the time of issuing, I think you're cutting a lot of people, you would be cutting a lot of prospective people out of the business. So,
I think we should look to see what our neighbors are doing. You know, we've got Bourne, Mashpee, and Barnstable. I understand Barnstable is a very hard and fast 6 months. You get 6 months, you exceed that, you turn your license in. They have a very strict liquor laws, from what I understand, in Barnstable. And the other thing about, you got to start somewhere, but with this select board policy, I would be gravely concerned about its enactment based on one word in here, and that is, applications will be considered on merit. Now, before we get to merit, we would need to have some well-defined description of what meritorious conduct is for a liquor license applicant.
Right.
And then go down even further into the next paragraph, and you find a sentence there that says, applications that demonstrate investment in existing commercial areas, increasing diversity of established may also be prioritized. Now you're asking for all kinds of both financial information from these potential liquor license holders and personal information about them. So this is like, to me, like a really slippery slope. Like right now, we've been able to kind of like bob and weave, and we've been fortunate because we've always had at least one select board member who's taken an interest in liquor laws. In this board, it's Mike. On the previous board.
It was David.
It was David. No, but you carried on. You learned, and because of your profession, you naturally gravitate towards that kind of enforcement mentality, which is what it takes.
Yeah.
And so before David, it was Frank Panorfi, who always took a really firm interest in this. When applicants came in, he seriously questioned them about, how many seats are there at that bar? And are you going to use it as a bar, or are you going to use it for, music? And if you're going to have music, are you going to have it on Friday night and Saturday night? I remember first getting on the board with Frank and thinking, wow, man, he is digging in his heels. However, it's essential because it's what allows the board to go back to the minutes and say, no, we questioned you about where those tables were.
Well, we could-
You said, you know, you weren't gonna use them for that. So that's, to me, that's another aspect of, like, if we get a look at another policy, we can kind of,
Yeah.
If this first section were adopted, that would be a major change for the way the board has operated, which is simply providing public notice, establishing the process for how the board might accept applications, and a hearing process around them. That alone would be, I think, a major change.
Yeah.
Section in the middle is where it gets really tricky, and you may want to just lean on the statute itself and not have any qualifications-based policy. So that really is the
I
discussion.
agree.
Yeah.
Now, let me throw one, oh, okay.
Like, this will be rambling, so maybe you want to go first. No, a couple things I wanted to say.
Ramble too.
So, like, I think it's a great idea to check what others have done, but also I'm sure KP, with all the towns they serve, they must have someone good. And Patrick's right. Barnstable has a whole separate licensing board and department. That's all they do. So, like, they may have some stuff we could steal that would be very smart.
I'm sure that they go around and check exactly what's going on, you
And
know.
I think it's, again, this is not tit for tat from what was said earlier, but I just want to be factual. Where my desk is, I hear when Melissa's in a conversation and I hear when Heather in a conversation. They have been so crystal clear with any person who's come in and asked about a liquor license. If they could not understand it, it's not because they weren't being given clear information. Furthermore, the first thing Melissa has told everyone, no license exists right now. So when another applicant who came this evening said they submitted a full application, we said, fine, we'll take your application, but we're not stamping it because we don't have a license available. Because, you know, that whole first come, first serve, in the past, we haven't accepted license applications until a license was actually available. So a couple of other things, just to be, not to correct, but just to be clear. So Ours Tapas, they were given another 6 months because they submitted the renewal application completely on time. So the statement that they didn't, it was not accurate. The Bobby Burns Pub, because they did not submit a renewal application on time, what Brian suggested is you have to give them time to submit a whole new application as if it's for a new license. So in the certified mail that you'll see in your packet, they were given till the end of January. If they haven't given us an application by then, that license is available. If they do submit an application, we can ask them, how come we have to schedule a hearing, publicly advertise, note abutters, everything, but why haven't you been exercising it? And you may decide we're not giving it to you. You know, so that one's going to come up sooner than 6 months. One thing Melissa has been very clear on is, I forget the exact date when you guys approved Ours Tapas, but they didn't even hear from the state for 3 or 4 months. So I don't even think that starts the clock ticking because they technically don't have a license to exercise yet.
That's interesting.
You know, so it's not like these have been fallow for a year. And the last thing I'd say is there's value in these licenses. So whoever holds them, they're very happy that they have those 6 months. We know many landlords that we're not going to mention by name, where licensed establishments sit, that if they decide to boot that restaurant, but the owner of the restaurant has that license, they can try to find another location and activate that same license once you approve of change of premises or whatever. Like, that's important. So there's value, and so there's reasons why that 6 months exists. Or God forbid, someone like was here earlier has financial trouble and they need some time to get on their feet. That's why that 6 months exists.
Yep.
We don't want to try to cripple someone and pull something away when they're trying to right themselves. And I think that gets lost sometimes.
if a business has been in existence in the town for 25 years and done everything right, and then they stumble, and we're gonna help them out.
Exactly.
And just one thing I also want to touch just briefly with Bud to second something is that both of those businesses that were issued these letters, the town has been in constant and continued communication, I would almost say like on a weekly basis, and both entities have been extremely responsive back to the town. So it's not like we're sending letters, emails, and phone calls and they're not being answered. Both of them are willing participants in this process. And, to that point, like, if somebody else came in and said, geez, I've hit hard times. I have to shut my business down because I don't have the staffing. If we had like another COVID event, something like that, where things weren't waived or something happened, drastically, you would want those people would want that time to right the ship or make themselves more viable as well. But I would say that I would be very, it's a commendable effort that's happening at Town Hall and specifically, I think Melissa, and communicating back and forth with the applicants and being transparent.
I would say if an establishment has a seasonal all alcohol license, it's because that's what they applied for.
Now,
So don't plead that you don't know what you applied for, because you were applied for, went through a huge review process, got it approved, and then the state reviewed it and did the same thing.
I guess one of those other questions, if we could get Brian tied up again, I think I mentioned it to you, but if someone has a license and closes up shop, and they don't go looking for a place, but they go to sell their license to somebody else, is that a transfer? Yes. Is that legal?
I think they could sell their license, but then they have to apply for the new
Yes.
manager.
They'd have to go through that.
transfer, exactly. That was done, for example, when Lawrence Pond Market closed. Lambert's bought their beer and wine license, which is what they have at their property now.
And the
And you
other,
had to approve all that.
and the other question mark I had is, should we think about if a person that has a seasonal license wants to move up to one of these new ones? Does that bump somebody that doesn't have anything?
Yeah, converting their license.
I don't.
Right.
Right, and there's, Dunbar's looking for that, even though Dunbar still doesn't have their state approval from what you guys approved months ago yet.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we're gonna do a policy,
Yeah.
should we, because I'm sure a lot of those businesses would love to move up too.
That's why when we wrote that letter yesterday and today, we thought we should ask for 10, because there are, and I don't know, in all my time here, and I'm leaning on Patrick and your guys' memory too, I can never recall an off-premises retail license where they would have an annual beer and wine and then same owner get a seasonal all alcohol. That's only been in like the last 3-4 years, and there's like 5 of them now. We have that in several places.
The pizza place.
Yeah, there's several of the package stores or like,
So they
mobile type places.
They have both
Yeah.
licenses, but they only really need one.
Well,
The all
if they had the all
all
alcohol,
encompasses everything.
and that's why we asked for 5 more of those to
And
try
then the
to.
beer and wine is superfluous.
Well, the beer and wine is all year, but the all alcohol, they have to close those 10 weeks.
They have to
The
close.
seasonal portion.
But it's weird because you got places that only serve beer and wine that now they're like, hey, I mean, a great example is right next to Sandwich Pizza, which is all done the right way, all done appropriately. But they sell, harder alcohol and liquor for whatever, 42 weeks a year.
Yeah, it's
And that, I don't recall that ever existed before. And there's 2 or 3 now that have it at least.
But beer and wine are unlimited, right, for a year?
No, we have limited of those too, yeah.
the cap on those.
But if you have one,
Seasonal or unlimited.
okay. Do they have just beer and wine all year? No.
No, they do, but they're capped.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. They're in that part of that cap.
Oh, okay. So the restaurant that was here tonight couldn't operate, because that's.
No, there's no year-round license, unlimited license that we could give them. Yeah. And I know the other thing that they brought up was like borrowing somebody's license. That you can't.
Uh-oh.
Imagine. Just imagine.
Right. Right, getting them to give it back, getting them to, right.
And it all, as you know, it relates to the.
License holder's supposed to be on premise or.
distributors, Not just liquor.
Right.
They're really good about that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we should do raffles.
You laugh, but the second paragraph, that's the one that, evaluation may include, okay, but what guarantees it's an equitable evaluation,
It's subjective,
right?
yeah.
That's really what you would get into if you had anything more than, again, the first section about notice, that's a big change. you know, just having a public notice of availability, a time frame for the
Yeah.
submittal,
Yeah.
no deadline on that. There would be a deadline, obviously, but there would be a time frame where people would know that there's a license available, could make an application, and then you would consider the applications presented.
Yeah, the first,
Right.
I'm fine with the first paragraph. It's the second paragraph that fills me with concern.
The question comes, would the board like any criteria by which you would like to alert the potential applicant by which you would evaluate them? And if the answer is no, that's fine, that's okay.
But we have to decide a process too. Do we bring them all in and interview them, or do we do it just by doing it? I mean, that's the other side of this. You know, if we're gonna have, I don't think we've had this situation before, where you've got such competition.
Right.
And so now that's kind of forced us into a position is, how do you make the decision? That's what that second paragraph is all
I
about.
mean, if you remember, there were people laying in wait, and then Industry Ale House
Yeah.
turned
I'll say that.
in their annual all alcohol, and then immediately that's when the seal came in right away, and they were the first applicant to grab that.
He could have transferred that to somebody that was gonna open the.
Could have if someone made an offer. I
Yeah.
think.
That's what
Yeah.
I was
So
thinking.
it
Yeah.
would be, to me, it would be a worthwhile exercise just to roughly write down how we do it now.
Yeah.
In other words, if I'm holding the all liquor license and I decide, that's it, I'm retiring, I'm gonna go down and give this to Melissa, or I'm out of here. How does it work? When does the clock start? I mean,
First one in the door.
Well,
so in other words, what, you turn yours in and then she stamps it, received. So there's gotta be like Mike said, it's gotta be a process to define how you do it.
And a full
You turn it
application.
in,
Right.
then you turn it in and bang, now she stamps it, now there's one license available. Is that gonna be, is she gonna have something on her computer where she just turns around and sends out this master thing saying, Sandwich has one all liquor license available, come, here they are, get in here.
a big fist fight, right? at the front of the-
Oh, it would be just.
I read, or I don't know if it was here, or I read it, but I heard that there was a case where they challenged over that, that's what you're talking about, Heather, notification, and they didn't. And the case came down to is, we have no responsibility to notify. It's their responsibility to find out, right? But what you're talking about is clarifying it, that some process in which you honestly let people know. It takes away the back door type of, I knew,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I knew,
Public
you know,
notification.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
and.
See, and because they get sold, see, I think that what I'm missing in this is that they don't get turned in. They get sold,
Pretty rare.
right? They get
It's worth a lot of
sold.
money. I was surprised at the end. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's money.
And it's interesting,
Almost as
because we've
much as
had
a lobster
two.
one.
We've had two. We've had the one in Forestdale and then down the canal. They turned in theirs.
Yeah, there've been a couple places who've gone to seasonal.
Yeah.
Pilot House and, I'm sorry, I always forget the, yeah.
So what can they do? They can sell the license they have, and then they can go get the seasonal.
They could have, they
A
didn't.
lot of places
They
aren't
know they're
open.
gonna close.
They're not open that
Right,
window.
Pilot House-
Seafood Sam's.
Turned into
Yeah.
a seasonal operation.
Yep.
Yeah, so-
Sam's probably always had a seasonal, but I know they have a seasonal.
This is not an issue like on the lower Cape,
Yeah.
because they're all seasonal business.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a whole different public than we have here.
This is a whole new thing, but
Yeah, we're year-round.
And it's a fine line between having a bunch of things or having nothing because you're whatever. You're hanging yourself either way. It's tough.
Well, it's tough because you want it to be a fair process and not just, a foot race through the door.
Yeah. But you don't wanna, but I don't wanna be on the board when there's three applicants.
I know.
And we're making the decision based on merit.
Right.
Well, that was my thinking around it, because if you
Yeah.
don't, and then the problem is if you don't have I think at that point, if you had 4 applicants for one license and there's no policy, that'll come up, in the litigation surrounding.
In the appeal.
Exactly.
Well, reaching out to, as you said, Barnstable to develop a criteria,
They must have, yeah.
I think is very important.
try and stay consistent with your surrounding towns.
Yeah.
If they did at all. They may not. They may strictly
May just
rely
be
on the
going by
statute.
general laws, like Mike said.
Yeah, well, the
By
difference
general
for them
laws.
is that they have unlimited licenses too, so if this, right, yeah, right, if your 6 months is up and they say we're taking it back, you go, I'll come in Tuesday, you know, like, there's still a license to be had.
I think, we talked about, I think, the headache. I don't know why the state even bothers. Let the towns decide.
I mean, if you're gonna put us on the hook, put it all the way.
Yeah, well,
Must be the issue.
and you know what? It'll take care of itself, I think, in the long run, because you can't, there's only so much business, you know, and
Yeah, the MMA has fought for years to try to get the legislature and the ABCC to say unlimited for everybody. Let the local town decide, and they don't do it.
Well, one way or the other, I guess. Let the local towns decide, or have the ABCC approve all the applications.
Yeah.
So now let me throw this one out there. So say Bobby Burns comes in tomorrow and says, here's my license. We've got people lined up now under the old way?
There's, there's, I
We'd
think
be-
there'd be
yeah.
3 or 4.
We'll be really quiet, and whoever comes in.
What do we do then?
There'd be 4, there would be 4 applicants by noon.
Well, I think some have already, I guess some have already come in, right?
Yeah, they've expressed interest, but we haven't really.
It's 3, right?
Yeah.
I think there's 3 that are, well, there's, no,
Yeah, well,
there's 4,
across the way,
right? Yeah,
Forestdale, and then one in Canterbury, and then
the other one,
I'm trying to think of the fourth.
the conversion.
Yes, yep.
So there's 4 right now.
I may be sick that
Afraid you'll
meeting.
be on the board with the
Yeah,
responsible applicant.
yeah. So I got good news and bad news. Right, yeah. That's, I mean, that was really my, you know, when we started talking about this and when I talked to Melissa, there's, you know, basically there's 4 active applicants right now waiting for a license that, yeah, I said that we should probably, you know, form some sort of a baseline policy, you know.
And I have to say, one thing Brian Riley's great at, he goes, you forget, you're a little sandwich. Imagine if you're the city of Boston, and how many issues is the ABCC dealing with for the city of Boston every day, 365 days a year? It's true.
Just the amount of commerce, though, in the town of Barnstable, with 7 villages and every single one of them
Oh, God, yeah.
loaded up, they've got mega experience with this. Good.
I still would like, if we could get a chance,
Yeah.
we talk to Jamie from,
Yes, yep.
what authority do we have to set condition? Whoops.
Oh, it's on the right-hand side.
I know,
If you lift it up, it goes up.
there we go. We're gaining. My chair's paying me
At
back.
9 o'clock, the chairs do
Paying me
that.
back, that's right.
Drop you down. Damn. Duck.
Well, we didn't solve that problem.
You can have this be a, you know, working thing, you know, just pray that that license doesn't come in next week.
You know.
Well, I just want you to know, you schedule it on April 6th, because I'm gonna be on vacation.
There you go, Mike.
So, all right, so we'll keep that as a working item, you know,
Yeah, I think
living
so.
document.
I think so.
Other matters for old business?
Sorry.
Anybody? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business, the Henry Wing School Extension with Cape Cod Collaborative. The license is in the packet, but or Heather, do you want to?
That's a very straightforward one. The Collaborative is renovating new space in Yarmouth. They're just about done with that. They probably could have expedited their move sooner, but they've asked for until the end of June to make that move.
What was it, December?
December, I'm sorry, to give them enough time to move out over the summer.
Do you need a motion on that, or just,
Yes, please.
okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
Do we have anything written?
Just to approve the license extension for Cape Cod Collaborative.
Yeah, till July 15th, is it?
I think it is July 15th. It's been a few
Yeah.
weeks since I've looked at it.
I think you're right, Charlie.
Okay.
No.
All right, moved to extend the Henry T. Wing School License Agreement with the Cape Cod Collaborative to July 15th, 2023.
Can I ask you for one modification?
Yes.
To award a license agreement. You may recall the last was a lease. This is a license. So it's,
Okay.
What a license.
Second.
As amended.
As amended.
As, yeah.
Yes, to extend the license agreement. Okay. Yep, got it. Thank you.
Second?
Yep.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Other matters not anticipated by the chairman. Anybody? Under new business? All right. Does our lone survivor want to come to the microphone? No. No public comment? Seeing as our,
I thought you were taking notes.
okay, closing remarks?
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Enough has been said
Yeah,
tonight.
A duct tape moment.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to change it. Please continue to maintain those under attack in the war in Eastern Europe and the overall threat to world peace in your thoughts and prayers.
All right, and at this point, we're going to enter into executive session. Executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A. The chair declares that having an open session may have detrimental effect on the town's bargaining, litigating, or negotiating position as applicable. For purpose number 6, disposition of real property, 130 Main Street, 16 Jan Sebastian Drive, and 145 Main Street. And also for purpose number 3, the collective bargaining strategy for the library union.
Move to enter executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote. Any discussion?
Clarification, we're coming out for adjournment only?
Yes.
That should be in the motion.
Okay. Do you want to amend it to,
Okay.
we'll return to,
Okay. Move to adjourn the public meeting and enter executive session.
Coming out for adjournment only.
coming out of executive session for adjournment only,
Right,
as amended.
as amended.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. We're in executive session. Our next meeting will be Thursday, January 12th, 2023 at 7 PM here at Sandwich Town Hall.
We're gonna stay here?